I'm really, really excited about today. This is one of our last sessions of the day. Right after this is our pitch battle. So I hope most of you are going to stay for this conversation with Neal Gupta and our pitch battle. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Seema Alexander. I'm the founder and chief strategy officer of Disruptive.CEO. I help visionary founders help them scale and grow in their companies. I'm also the curator of the growth track for the DC Startup Week this year. And so if you guys are not familiar with DC Startup Week, it's been around for, I believe, 5 years, and each year it gets stronger and stronger. So last year they had about 8,000 strong regional entrepreneurs attend over 100 events throughout the city last September. This year, because of COVID, we went virtual, and I got to tell you, we've had double the amount of attendance on every single one of our sessions today, which has been pretty incredible. Because normally, if you think about it, you're at the Google headquarters and you have capacity of 70. We've had on average of 100, 140 folks on each one of these sessions. So we're happy to be able to provide this to you. We couldn't do this without a lot of our title sponsors. So we have Next, Inspirity, Wiz, and Technology Rivers as our title sponsors. And really, really thank you for that, because again, this is a complimentary event. So we could not do this without you. So with that, I am so excited to have this conversation with Neal Gupta. Neal is one of the founders I met early on. I was born and raised in DC, but I'd moved to New York for about 17 years and only recently moved back 2.5 years ago. And Neal came highly recommended. Do you know KiwiTech? Do you know the founders? Do you know what they're doing for the tech entrepreneurs in the area, but really all over the country and particularly the world? So we can talk more about that. What I would love to do, Neal, is just get right into it. So I could sit there and share your bio, but I'd rather you tell your story in a few minutes, kind of leading up to KiwiTech, and then we're going to get deeper into KiwiTech and much more.
Sure. Thanks, Seema, and to the DC Startup Week team. You guys are working really hard to put on a great event. And I think, Washington, D.C. really needs people like you to do this kind of stuff and really promote the ecosystem, because we have such a huge amount of talent here that, should be leveraged, and we need this sort of networking to help that happen. So a little about me is some of you might have heard of KiwiTech. We are a startup ecosystem of currently close to 300 technology startups, mostly around the country, but some around the world. And this is a portfolio we plan to grow to 1,000 companies. And just to give you a little background, my co-founders and I earlier started a company in the DC area called Aptara, which we scaled to 5,000 people worldwide. It was a tech services company. And that business was at one point valued at $1 billion. Unfortunately, we didn't capture that because that was the last recession, but it did sell. And after that, we started investing in startups, and we invested in about 35 companies and found that there was a common pain point, common thread that we saw amongst these entrepreneurs that was really building their tech. They were outsourcing a lot of their technology work in the early stage, and we're having a tough time with that. So we started helping them with it and developed this model of actually taking equity for building technology, and supplemented that with an ecosystem of events. This quarter, we have 24 events. We expect 2,500 attendees at our events. They've all gone virtual. There used to be in-person events in the DC area. There used to be a Tower Club in Tyson's. In New York, there'd be a Core Club. In LA, there'd be a Cooley Santa Monica offices. In Bay Area, DocuSign headquarters. In Austin, Capital Factory. So, various different places around the country. So that's what we are, essentially tried to build our own startup ecosystem to help entrepreneurs, not just with capital and technology, but also networking via our events and connections with funds and family office and high net worth individual investors.
So I want to put this in perspective for people, because I find your business model pretty fascinating, right? So I think when I talk to tech entrepreneurs, the development costs alone and like all the product cycles, I mean, that has so much, that takes a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
It takes a lot of forethought because either you're focused on doing what you need for the next phase, but then you have other clients that are trying to get at you like, I need this, I need this, I need this. And we're going to have a whole conversation on the product life cycle. Motion is actually who's the head of your startup. Is he startup strategy? Yeah, he's going to be leading this week as well. But so when I hear about you guys, I think about three things. You have a portfolio of tech startups that come in and they get discounted development services, correct? Right. They get educational and mentorship support through your programs that you guys have in multiple various stages of their business, right? And then one thing that I also find fascinating is you guys provide demo days for your portfolio companies. And that is an opportunity for them to get investment dollars at different stages of growth for them. So can you share more about that and how that strategy came about?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, one reason we really started our model was that we found that we were just another, I would say, seed fund investor, and we thought that we could add more value than simply writing a check. Although that's of course important, but we really thought that we could build technology for equity, and that could add a lot of value. And we tried doing both. And honestly, it was tough to wear two hats, so we just focused purely on the building tech for equity. But yeah, how entrepreneurs leverage our ecosystem really is with our network of events. We have not just demo days, we have workshops, so we have expert speakers on everything from managing anxiety to product design, to marketing, to finance, to fundraising. We have industry panels recently. We had Chubb and Lockton on an InsurTech industry panel. We have venture capital panels. We've had NEA and Edison Partners on our VC panels. We have family office panels with recently Koch Industries, family office, Forbes, DuPont, family offices. So a lot of premier investors participating as panelists on our events. And numerous other events where entrepreneurs can connect with investors, and we actually help facilitate those connections so they're not totally random. We circulate lists of the investors to our startups attending, and not just portfolio companies, actually other companies are welcome to attend, and we share their information with the investors that the entrepreneurs are comfortable sharing. And if there's a match, if both parties want an introduction, we make introductions. So at one of our VC panels, for instance, we made 90 introductions after the panel over the next week after the panel. So, these are warm introductions, and really, that's what entrepreneurs need these days. They need the network, they need warm introductions to not just investors, but mentors, potential clients. It's so much about networking. If you look at the top business leaders like Jack Welch and all, they talk about how important networking was to their success. So we try to facilitate the networking effect with our events, which used to be in person, but now we're finding we're actually getting even more engagement and attendance with the virtual events. And I suppose after this pandemic, we'll have some sort of a hybrid model of, people still want to meet face-to-face and shake hands, but at the same time, we want to be able to leverage the, virtual platforms, which everyone's more comfortable now having to been forced to use them during the pandemic. So
yeah. So one of the other reasons, Neal, I wanted to have you on, and for the tech founders on here, first of all, if you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat, because I will be, looking at your questions and asking Neal as well. One is to be as interactive as possible. But one of the things that they have that I find fascinating is every year they look at 40,000 startups. Is that the right number? I don't want to be inaccurate.
You're right. Exactly right. Yeah.
So literally, guys, they have a little less than 300 startups in their portfolio, but they have a system to look at 40,000 startups and do the due diligence to say, okay, this startup makes sense. This is the right fit for our portfolio. We see them and having the ability to grow if we support them in these areas. That also not only impacts like, okay, what are you looking at? What are those indicators? But I'm assuming that same due diligence could be used for funding, right? So like, Well, could you share, like, what are you guys looking at that you're so strict? Because it sounds like your investment thesis is very specific.
Yes, well, I would say we're a lot different than, a VC or seed fund or even high net worth individual in how we invest, because we invest so broadly. We invest in 2 companies a week, on the average 200,000 per company. And our investment, again, is by virtue of technology services for the most part. So, we do have a little more flexibility in how we partner and invest in companies than somebody who's writing a check. And the reason we have such a huge outreach program, last year was 40,000 companies, you're right. The year before was 24,000. And the reason we have such a huge outreach program is because we feel that we can find the best of breed in each industry by talking to more and more companies. And for us specifically, we look for companies that have a technology need. They really fit our model. So there may be a very good startup, but maybe they're not building tech, so it just may not be a fit for us. There may be a fit for a seed fund or a family office. But we look for the regular things that really even a investor who's writing a check does. The team, the idea, the traction, revenue, how much have they raised, all those things. And we are not tied to any industry, so we're industry agnostic. We invest in health tech, fintech, sports tech, insurance tech, e-commerce, pretty much any technology disruptive startup, and also geography agnostic. Although all our outreach is here in the US, through partners, we have invested in companies outside the US, but still the US is really the heart of innovation, and there's not a lot of reason to go abroad except for places where we happen to have good partnerships.
Yeah, so we actually have one question, and I think this is, a follow-up. So what systems do you use to manage that large number of 40,000 to do your due diligence?
Well, Neal asked it. Yeah, I know Neal, of course. So, well, we have a pretty big team at KiwiTech, close to 500 people. Most of them are software developers, but we have a 40% marketing, sales and marketing team as well, which is tasked with actually finding all these companies. And we are, minority and passive investors for the most part. So I'd say we're really engaged with maybe the top 10% of companies, the top 30 companies. So we're not really engaged with all 300 portfolio companies or all 40,000. But we do have a huge database of information on, all the companies we've spoken with, which are, 100,000 by now. So we have a huge database of information, which could potentially have value, I'm sure, but we are building a tool, a portal on our website for investors to access to actually drill down into our portfolio a little deeper and track that a little better. But I wouldn't say we're tracking 40,000 startups or 100,000 startups, but we do have information and data on them.
So let me ask you, this is an important question. I think it's two-pronged. So when I've heard a lot of advice when you're starting out, you should have your own CIO, your own development in-house, because that's sort of your proprietary, it's like your co-founder, right? It's your proprietary stuff. Mm-hmm. So one of the questions that came up that adds to this, it says, have recent changes in patent law changed your approach to patent protection for tech startups, right? So I think it's two-pronged. There's a lot of feedback on make sure you have a really strong CIO and development team internally, and to now, work with someone like like yourselves. Well, how do you change that mindset? Where's the benefit versus the cons?
Sure. No, I think every entrepreneur has to make their own call. Obviously, if it's something like a cybersecurity company or something, they would want to probably develop everything in-house and onshore as well. We have offshore developers. But from what we've seen, seed stage startups, if they don't have sensitive DoD type software they're developing, they have to pretty much have a global process for their software development needs, whether it's going to, even if it's going to Midwest or South America or Europe or India or China, almost every product, whether it's a car or a piece of software, has a global development process. So Um, there are definitely some early stage startups which can manage to do it in-house, but when they want to scale, if they can raise the funds, they should continue to do it in-house. I totally agree with that, but it's not always easy to raise millions of dollars when you don't have any revenue. So, the bulk of them will be looking for solutions where they can save capital. And in our case, we become a vested partner because, we have equity in them. So they like that about our model. Whereas, most other companies they'd be outsourcing it to don't really have skin in the game besides getting paid for the development. So I do see that, that does raise issues in terms of, the quality and delivery. Are they really going to get the commitment from, those companies? So I can see your point there. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, people like stories, they like real examples, right? So I know Hungry is a company of yours under your portfolio, Luxury Villa Homes Global, Event Combo. Can you share sort of, how you engaged with them initially? What's been the strategy, especially, I'm sure there's been a lot of post-COVID changes, with pivots and otherwise. So can you just share how with these companies that are known entities, how do you work with them?
Sure. Those are great examples for four of my favorites portfolio companies. Hungry is, of course, well known here in the DC area. They raised $20 million before the pandemic. It's a food tech business, which basically a platform to connect companies, mid-sized companies with chefs who want to basically help these companies provide Google type service to their employee base. And obviously with the crisis, their business evaporated because nobody was going to the office and they couldn't, have chef prepared meals for 100 or 200 employees because nobody was going to the office. And Hungry successfully pivoted to delivering chef prepared meals to where their employees live, to apartment buildings. And what's incredible is they may very well, they're projecting they're going to beat their earlier numbers projected for the year with their new model. So it's just been an incredible pivot by a company in the hospitality sector. And as we know, travel and hospitality has been really hit very hard with COVID. And they've just pivoted phenomenally well during this crisis. So very impressed with them. Luxury Villa Homes Global.
Can you actually, I don't mean to cut you off, but tell me more because so one of the things, obviously there's a lot of innovation happening in certain industries, and I'm assuming as an investor, those are the ones that you guys are looking at more, but travel and hospitality, what did they do? Like, with everything that's going on, I'm curious to hear more about what their pivot was.
Yeah, no, so as I mentioned, they used to deliver meals to offices and, for large masses of employees, 100 or 200 employees, and they pivoted to delivering to apartment buildings. And that's, the numbers that they're talking about have been really impressive in terms of how they're actually going to exceed their earlier projections. And how we engaged with them was, we actually knew the founding team from another company called LiveSafe, which has been another success in the area. And they're a multi-exit founding team. So the way we got into Hungry was really through the team rather than the business. And another, as I mentioned, Luxury Villa Homes Global. It's a super high-end Airbnb. They provide really staffed villas around the world, $10 to $20 million villas. They have access to 5,000 villas for large families, wealthy families. And their business also evaporated during the pandemic. And surprisingly, they're bouncing back really quickly. And the opportunity there was they're raising a bridge round to a Series A. So we were able to increase our investment at an attractive valuation. But we were very impressed with how they managed to bounce back and really established more COVID-friendly service to their clientele. So yeah, we've been impressed with some of our companies, especially in tough spaces like this, travel and hospitality, that have really managed to make a go of it and made successful pivots to their model. So.
Yeah, this is good. I'm going to shift a little bit. It's crazy. We only have a few minutes left, Neil. This thing goes really quick. And I actually have a couple good ones for you. So I know you share with me your expertise is helping companies prepare for an exit, right? In general, right? So what words of advice would you give, earlier stage tech entrepreneurs in terms of planning for an exit? Like, what does that process look like? It's a big question, I know, but just, some words of advice.
Well, I guess it does depend on what stage you're at, but if you're talking about, say, seed stage, I think the best thing to plan for is really build a viable business and a cash flow positive business. And once you're cash flow positive, the exits will really come to you and you don't have to do a lot of planning. But from past experience, what I would say is if you're getting an exit that is palatable and, you should seriously consider it because, you can always build another company.
Yeah, okay. And if anybody, again, has any more questions, please put them in the chat. So where do you think your growth will be next year, now that we are in this environment particularly?
Well, as a company, we're growing about 37% a year. And, we're not seeing innovation or entrepreneurs slow down. In fact, as you know, during a recessionary environment, it's actually innovation speeds up. Yeah. And so we're busier than ever, honestly. And, we're having meetings like everyone else on Zoom rather than face to face. So that's also speeding things up. And we just see growth all around coast to coast and globally. And we just try to get in better and better companies every quarter.
And your goal is to be at 1,000 portfolio companies by when? As you guys have a projected time frame?
Yeah, in the next 3 to 4 years. Right now, we're at a clip of 2 companies a week, and that will probably increase to 3 companies a week at some point. And while continuing to improve the quality quarter on quarter. So.
Okay, I got another question. Are you funding as much as you said previously with the 200,000, I'm assuming? Do you find companies that only meet on Zoom? And what about the real estate sector? They're 3 in 1, but I'm assuming. So I think they're asking about, are your funding amounts staying the same? Are you okay with meeting just the companies on Zoom because now it's not a in-person sort of thing? And do you invest in the real estate sector?
Yeah, our funding amount is pretty flexible. I mean, we may come in for 50,000 in some companies and $500,000 or $1 million in other companies. I would say on the average is 200,000, but we're pretty flexible on that. And again, our funding is services for equity model, just to be clear. And yes, companies are comfortable working off Zoom. That hasn't posed an issue. And tech startups are pretty, innovating, so they don't have a problem with using new technology. And yeah, we have companies in the real estate sector, pretty much every sector that you can think of. So yeah, we're sector agnostic.
Yeah, real estate sector, we do a whole commercial real estate summit that really is focused on prop tech, and that's a huge sector that needs a lot of innovation. So if you're in real estate tech, go for it. There's so many areas that need help. Last question with the audience, and then I want to close out. What are some good sectors for new startups to look at post-COVID from your perspective?
Well, since we're sector agnostic, we just feel that you should innovate in industry that you know. We try to invest in people who know an industry. We're not really investing in the 22-year-old who's trying to build the next Facebook. We're investing in the person who's got 10, 20 years experience in the financial sector and building a new fintech startup, or the healthcare sector and building a new health tech startup. So that's kind of more our thinking. So I would say, don't try to focus on a sector, try to focus on what you know, which industry do you know, and you can help disrupt. Okay.
So I have one fun question before my last question. So the question about if you were stranded on an island with 5 people, who would they be and why? Any thoughts, Neal? I'm very curious with you.
That's actually a great question. I never thought of it.
Good. Yeah, I told you I'm gonna have at least some spice to this, right? It has
I
to.
mean, since you're making me think, obviously Warren Buffett, right?
Okay.
Gotta have him there.
Why?
Then Bill
You gotta say the
Gates.
why.
Why?
Yeah.
Because just such an incredible investor, and now he sees value in companies that other people don't.
Yeah.
And then you got to have Bill Gates. You know, he's, I think that not because of Microsoft, but actually because he's just the most amazing philanthropist probably in the history of the world. I think that's just something that blows my mind. What
Not
he's done.
because of the possible investment in TikTok.
Well,
Here's
Oracle won
my
that.
my 10-year-old will be all about. She's all about Microsoft right now because of possibly investing in
Well,
TikTok.
I just read that Oracle won that. So
Okay, well, now
yeah.
she's gonna love Oracle. Go
And
ahead.
do they have to be alive
No, they
or
don't have to be alive.
I guess Abraham Lincoln, you know, he's probably the most incredible president, you know, how he made such a huge decision to, you know, not let, you know, the South secede. That was pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? Maybe Roosevelt, you know, four-term elected, you know, to 4 terms, something no one's ever done. And my personal favorite, Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, he's not an odd pick probably, but you know, I think you know, to reach the top of 3 fields, you know, one person, I think is pretty amazing. So
Awesome.
those would be my 5. Yeah.
Okay, well, Neal, thank you so much. This is an incredible founder chat. I'm glad we got to run the gamut of really understanding Kiwi Tech. I hope the tech entrepreneurs got some, you know, understanding of what your company does and capabilities, but also some insights on where innovation is going to be heading in the future and, you know, other things to look at as you grow and scale your company. Right now, we have a really exciting pitch battle coming next, which I know, you know, you have done a lot with your demo days. I think there's some folks in there that are revitalizing the high heel, which for me, I'm like, if you make that comfortable, I'm your girl. To like, there's construction tech folks in there. There's interactive